Hi, welcome to this How Do I series for Microsoft Dynamics in AV 2015. My name is Morten Jensen and I'm a program manager in the Dynamics in AV team. In this episode of a series, I will present how do I use the application merge utilities in Microsoft Dynamics in AV 2015. At the end of this video, you will learn what the theory behind the merge process is. We'll talk about the artifacts that the tools are working on and how and where to find them. And then I will introduce you to some sample scripts and some demo data that comes on the distribution media. And finally, we will try to run the merge commandlet, the core commandlet of the utilities, and see how the input parameters and the output is. At a higher level, these are the steps. I said, talk about the theory and the principles behind. We'll export a file, see how that looks if you're not familiar already with that. We'll talk about how to launch the merge utilities, and then talk about the demo data and sample scripts on the product media and understand how to use those. And finally, run the merge nav application object commandlet and see the results. So just a little background. If we think of a simple table, in this case 888, shipped by Microsoft for the RTM version, that be R2 or 2015, it doesn't really matter. It has 3 fields: phone number, first name, last name, to keep it simple. Now, 1 or 2 parties will make changes to that. Let's assume that this is you're making a vertical, and you find it appropriate to add an email account to that table. So that's what you do through a customization in Seaside. Later on the same base or original version of table 888, Microsoft comes out with this great idea about combining first name and last name into one, and just keeping the phone number, obviously not knowing about your addition of the email. If you look at that, that is a conflict if you try to just merge these two, because one doesn't know about email and the other one doesn't know about the absence of the first name and last name fields. So what the toolset does is it calculates deltas. So if we take the original version and your target version, that would say that the differences between these two, the delta, is the email fields. Now, in the other case on this Microsoft edition, let's say that's a cumulative update, that will appear as if a new field has been added, name, and 2 fields have been deleted, first name and last name. So and there are commandlets that can calculate this and store it as files. But for the core commandlet, the merge commandlet, what it does is it will look at the added field and say, okay, then I can apply that to the resulting file or table 888, meaning that the email is simply added, because it has nothing to do with the other changes, to the resulting table, while keeping the cumulative update changes from last name, first name to name. And doing this, we actually have a seamless merge, since there's none of the changes that overlaps. For the sake of the rest of this presentation and use of the toolset, just refer to these 4 corners, the blue ones. The upper left corner is the original. We talk about this is where the 2 other versions, in this case yours and Microsoft Cumulative Update, was originated from. Then we call it the modified one. That is the one in the lower left. And the target one, this is where we want to take the modification. And then of course the 4th one is the result. You should be aware that you can swap the 2, modified and target. Typically we say that the modified is the smaller of the 2, the one with the fuse customization. The next thing that we need to discuss is the input parameters with the commandlet. And in all cases, this is text files containing application objects, and you get these by taking the development environment, find the object you want to export, file export. You keep it as text files, which is what we do, and then you save it in the directory there. In this case, I already tried it out in advance, so I'll just save it. And if I go and launch that and see what's in it, and we'll just really quickly discuss it, there are the naming identification of the code unit. There's object properties. We have separate commandlets to handle those. Can also be handled through the merge commandlet. Properties, which can be merged and can get into conflicts, and we have discussions on that in a separate video as well. Then you have the variables and the procedures of this piece of code. And in the bottom, I just want to mention that you have this section, which is the documentation section, or documentation trigger, which can be filled in. And we have special handling for that also, again, covered by other videos. So if I return to my slides, I can jump to the next one. Where to find it? So the place to find these is the new introduced in Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2015, a development shell. And the development shell is a PowerShell, standard PowerShell shell that looks like this. And I can, just for the purpose of the demo, I'll just change the layout here. And I will get this. Here you can see a set of functions. These are scripts that are placed on the distribution media, and then a set of commandlets. And in particular, we are looking on into the merge commandlet. And I'll just really quickly repeat that you can, if you don't already know, you can do merge nav, merge commandlet, and you can say detail, and you can have a look, and you will see a comprehensive walkthrough of the syntax, the synopsis, description of what it does, and then for all of the parameters, you can also see that. And at the end, or if you use the parameter examples, you can see that examples of how to use that. And you can also, down here, use the online parameter, which will take you to the same information, but on MSDN, and that might be easier to read in that context. So if I continue from that and just for a quick moment here, see we're ready to use it, but we need some demo data. And where do we then find the demo data? Well, you can go to the distribution media. In this case, I've copied it from here onto a directory, taking the directory called Windows PowerShell scripts. Let me just clear that out and go down in that and see what it is. It has one. In my case, I only copied the application merge utilities, which are here. And this is where all my sample scripts are, and this is where my demo data is. And if I look at the demo data for a quick moment, I will start my file explorer and I will have a look at that. And you can tell that these are sample scripts. Instead of running it, the commandlet in the PowerShell environment as such, I will open the integrated script environment, and that looks like this. It should come up here. And it is the same thing. I can do a lot of things. The only thing that is not in here is it haven't already loaded the Dynamics NAV PowerShell modules. So I like to use one of the sample scripts to do that. So W was the drive where I had my directory, which is on the DVD. So if I go Windows scripts here and I go into that directory, I can see that I have all of those. You see, this is exactly the same. So now I go file. In that directory, I go file open, And then I pick one of those, and not a randomly chosen one, this one. What this does is exactly the same as the shell that you saw before. So if I run this by running the script, it will import the module and it will list all of the data that comes with it. And you will probably recognize this list again. Before I go in and try and use the merge commandlet and see how that works, I will just have a quick look on what is actually being merged. So I will paste in this command. KD3 is a freeware three-way merge tool. And if I run that, it will pop up and tell me that I have the original. You can see that demo data uses the folder names that I talked about earlier. The original version, it has the target version, could be yours, and a modified version could be a cumulative update. In this case, there are changes in your application, and this is the Spanish version, but not the two others. So if this is the target, we say that that can be used as is because this one didn't change what you built on top of. If I go to the next one, we will see that there are differences here. So this will actually come up as a conflict because you changed it and Microsoft changed it. And the last of only 3 in this case is a pure addition in your system. Since Microsoft didn't try to put something in like that, that can seamlessly be merged with the other one. Since the module is already loaded, I don't need that anymore. I can use the command prompt down here, but I'd rather use this one up here since I can then save it and I can rerun it later on. And you see that there's nice auto-completion, can also have debugging capabilities built in. So I'll run the merge nav application object. I will point at the first of the parameters, the original version, and I will use my demo data and I will pick it down from original and I will go for code unit 1. This is the core, this is the base, this is original from what your solution was built on top of, in this case the Spanish version. So the target version, I will go and pick on the same way. So I go demo data, I go target, and I will go code unit 1 and pick that one. The third input parameter that needs to be given is the modified parameter. The modified parameter in this case is the cumulative update, and the data that I'm looking at is not surprisingly stored in the same way, so I go and pick that as well. So even though there is a few more parameters, I only need to add the results parameter as well. This is where the resulting files should go, and in my case I think I will just put it in the current directory. Before I run it, I will clear this so we do not get confused, and then I'm ready to run. There's a few more parameters. Other episodes in this series will discuss these because these are more specialized versions, and it will also show how to point at directories, and you will learn how to take a set of files and put it into a single file, a merged file, or a joint file. So now I'm ready to run my script. Press F5 or click here. So what this does is it reads the first one, compares with the last one, and applies it on the target one. There's a summary and a details part. The summary says it has worked on a single object, and there was a single individual change that needed to be applied to your target, and that was actually the conflict that we showed. The other two is not considered something that you have to do because it's already in your target. If you swap the two, you will see a different version, and you can try that because you can see how fast it is. Details will talk about what it did. It has the outcomes of these, where merged and conflicts and inserted, deleted, unchanged are the most common ones. You can see a short description of what it means if it is merged and what it means if it has a conflict, and then you can go and visit that. And then there are some statistics here that's not so interesting since we only have a single file, but if you take a full RTM version, we're talking about approximately 4,000 objects plus those that you have add it yourself. The last thing we need to look at is the outcome of running this commandlet. And if we look at the directory and recall that I put all the resulting objects into the current directory, we will see that code unit 1 in a copy is here. This is where the merged result is. If there was a conflict, and in our case here there was, there will also be a conflict file with hints to how to resolve this conflict, things that you need to do. There's also 3 directories, each for the 3 input parameters, original, modified, and target. These are covered in other episodes of this series. Let's just have a look at code unit 1. I'll just scroll down in advance to where the conflict was, as we saw it earlier. And the idea is that you can import this by into Seaside and recompile it, and these tags will just tell you, or the compiler, that there is something you need to do. In this case, you'll just pick which of the 3 that's correct for you, or if it's a 4th, and you'll resolve that, and then you're good to go. If we look into the conflict file on the other hand side for this code unit, you will see that it has the same structure as the application object text files, but it has a modification type and a change called code modification or property modification that tells you what to do. And in this case, it's a conflict hint, and it says that the conflict is inline, and we just saw that. For properties, this is showing the 3 different versions, or 2, and it is for you to resolve it before it can be imported. And the reason being is exactly that it cannot be imported unless you do that. So this more or less concludes my demo. We saw at the last piece here how you could run the nav application object commandlet and see how the results were. And just to show it again, something like this. You have the syntax, you have the required parameters to run it. You can always do a get help to get more information, but this is more or less what you need to know in order to run your merge commandlet on your new application, take in the cumulative updates, and so forth. So that concludes this introduction to application merge utilities. Thanks for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you again in another episode of this How Do I video series for Microsoft Dynamics 2015.